Yeah, here we go, y'all. Here we go. Another episode of Diverse Talking Heads podcast. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs, and we are thankful that you're checking out this episode because today we're going to talk about something we all love, which is money, our salaries, and transparency in salaries. I do have our regular cast of panelists here with me this evening. I'm going to ask them to unmute themselves and say hello. Hello, Amy.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Amy. Welcome. And we also have Karen.
Hello.
Good evening, Karen. We have Charlie.
Calvin, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we have Dan.
Hello, hello. Good to see everyone.
Likewise, Dan. Well, let's get right to it, y'all. What exactly is salary transparency? By definition, it's the degree to which employers are open about what, why, how, and how much their employees are compensated, and to what degree they allow employees to share that information with others. So, I'm going to start by asking you guys about any time in your life when you may have been in front of the hiring manager and it came to the point to talk about salaries. Obviously, they want to get a feel for where you are at. You want to get a feel for where they are at. How did that go down? And I'm going to ask Amy, we'll start with you.
I can think of a couple times in my life specifically, one where I was pretty young in my career, but felt like what the role was asking for would require kind of a jump in salary for me. And so I took what for me was a really big risk and said, this is the range that I think I should be compensated at. It paid off. I don't think I slept for a week leading up to that because I was so nervous asking for something that was fair. But then on the other side of the coin, I can think another point where that didn't work out for me and where I ended up actually taking a cut, kind of moving from one organization to another. So I would say that I've kind of experienced both ends of it. I hate the question. I hate that negotiation part, but a lot of emotion tied to it. It's definitely a very tender subject with me.
Yes, in fact, I don't believe the question is fair. And in the past, I have asked in reply to that question, well, how much does the job pay? And they didn't like that question at all. Charlie, have you ever had any problem like that?
No, I have not personally had that. I've argued with people about money before being a payment of some sort, and sometimes I've won, sometimes I've lost. But I like Amy's comment about that when you feel like you're going to do that, you feel really nervous about it for some reason, even though you have a perfectly valid reason for doing it, very logical and that. But really, you should, because you should be able to, you assume you're going in and you're just, okay, I know this is right. I thought this through. I've been thinking about it. Any reasonable person, will accept my thinking, although that's not necessarily the case on that. When I prepped for the show, I was looking at a little more in larger picture about salary discrepancies between men and women. And, I learned a few things about that. I mean, some of which I knew, but there was a few things I was rather surprised at. I didn't know before. I'm just going to leave it at that. But personally, I've not had that experience except on like smaller things, not on a regular job. And, I've been self-employed for a long time.
Dan, have you ever stated a salary that you would like for a particular job, feeling that you had undercut
I,
yourself?
yeah, I mean, I did when I was young, but when I was first starting out, but essentially, I expect the employer to tell me what they want to pay. I don't think it's, first off, I don't think it's their damn business what I made. And second off, um, it's irrelevant. It's a different company. So you have the budget, you know what you want to pay, you give me the range. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time? I actually had once where somebody insisted and said, "Well, that's how we always do it," and I actually walked out of the interview. Um,
Well, Dan,
I said, well, you know what you're going to pay, and what you want to do is you want to base it on what I used to get, and if that number's lower, that's what you want to give me. So they use it in order to pay you less. I don't want to start a working relationship with a company that wants to start with deception.
well,
And
that's true.
that's where I have a problem with it. So I do ask up front. I said, and I just try whatever I can not to answer that question. If it's pushed really hard, I will give a range. I never give a number. I always make sure my range includes, where I want to be. But I think it's the obligation of the employer to give the amount that they want to pay.
Well, in a lot of states now, it is becoming the employer's obligation to let the um, client or um, not the plaintiff, but the person applying for the job to know what the job pays. Now, I'm going to ask Karen this question. Have you ever taken on a job and once you get there, you feel like, damn, this is a lot of work. I should have asked for more. Or got the feeling that those people around you, your coworkers that's doing the same job, may have gotten more money than you?
Yes, I have. And what I did when I first uh, started working, I was temping. And through the process of temping, it helped me not only to hone my skills, but to understand how much to know how much my worth was. Because working as a temp, I would work for different companies in accounting. And I found that I was being paid less than other people who were doing less. I was doing more. And once I went back to the agency, to my rep, I wound up getting the money that I requested because
Mm.
I was like, no way, no way in the world. And I had no problems during that period walking away from a position. If it
Okay.
was and talking to people, just saying hi to people, they'll tell you how much a person the pay scale should be for certain positions when you
Okay.
apply. It's always somebody that says, well, they're paying you what? And you're not thinking, you'll say, well, they're giving me $12 an hour. And they're like, well, the previous person, when they started, got 15. And you're like, what? So they will try to lowball you. They
hmm
will.
Now, now, two things. First, Dan mentioned uh, that some employers will actually ask you what you made before, which I feel
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with the situation at hand. And Charlie mentioned something as well about male and females getting paid. We all know what the stats say that women traditionally get less pay for the same job as a man would. Amy, have you ever been in a situation where you may have been through, or maybe experienced, or maybe you know someone that has taken on a job, someone's a woman and a man is
Mm-hmm.
getting paid the same job with more money?
Oh yeah, no, it definitely happened to me, and I had no idea. I felt like such a fool when I found out, because I, felt like, oh, my manager likes me. I like working here. That would never happen, as long as I'm a good employee. The way that I found out was really kind of bizarre. I ended up getting a new manager, and during my review, like a whole, year or so later, they were doing the annual review, and they said, we're actually correcting your salary and we're giving you, and it was a huge percent, it wasn't like 3% or 5%. It was like over 10% of an adjustment. And they're like, and that's not really based on your performance, although you are a good employee. We're trying to bring you up in line with other folks in your position. And it was a small company, and there was literally one other person in the same position, and it was a male. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just spent the last year going, working as hard as I possibly could. And I was more than that amount behind my counterpart. And we had exactly the same role. We were literally hired at exactly the same time. We were the same age. Like, we couldn't have been more similar, where you could say, oh, well, they came in with X, whereas you only came in with Y. Like, no. And it was quite a lesson. And I don't know. The only thing I feel like I learned was that, wow, you can be a good person and still get screwed over. And they kind of do. I think, Dan, you were the one that said, they take advantage. They want to lowball you. The organization wants to see how little they can get you for. And yeah, I'm getting emotional remembering that, because it was a tough day. I appreciated the correction that my female manager gave me. I forgot to mention that, but it was a tough pill to swallow.
Yes, it is a tough pill to swallow, Amy. And in preparation for this show, I had to go back and relive some things that I went through. Being a Black man working on Wall Street for 15, 16 years, I know I was not getting the pay that I was worth. However, I was making a decent salary. However, when I moved from the East Coast in that Wall Street area into the Midwest, I have never even come close to that salary again. And the first few jobs I had was in that same industry, and they would not meet what I made, no matter what. One couple places even let me walk out, until I was like, well, finally I need a job. Damn, I can pay this rent. Let me just take whatever I can get. And that's a problem as well. So we know that because of gender, because of race, there may be some inadequacies. Dan, you may agree that another problem would be age. Dan, do you agree? I know you're the expert on ageism.
Yeah, well, I do agree, but if I could, I just speak to this problem. I was in a position where I promoted two people into team leaders positions. I was a director in a software development, and it just so happened to be it was one woman and one man, and I found that she was making less than he was,
Mm,
and I brought them both up to the same level. And I actually got questioned by my CIO asking me why I gave her so much. And I said, well, they're doing the same job. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand the question. And he's like, well, you moved her up a higher percentage than him. And I said, well, she was underpaid. And the interesting part of the aside of it is she was actually a hell of a lot better than he was.
mm.
I wish I could have given her more. She was actually a much better leader than he was. But I wasn't aware of it. I ran into this where I didn't have the awareness, and I just thought naively that, all right, they're doing the same job. I'm going to give them the same money, and and that was in my budget. And I got questioned for moving her at a bigger percentage than him. So, it does happen frequently, I'm sure. I'm sure it happens a lot more than I'm aware of. So,
Can I
Shame on you,
just
Dan.
can I make a
Shame on
quick
you.
comment on that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
yeah, but first I gotta say shame on Dan for trying to be fair. Hey, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
It's real quick. So first, Dan, thank you for doing that. And it's Dan and I did not. I know we just told similar stories, but we did not work together.
Yeah.
But thank you for doing that. One quick comment, and Calvin, if I'm cutting ahead of you, I'm so sorry. I can't tell you how many articles I've seen or have been sent to me or that I've read. Women, how to ask for more money. Why is it on me? Why do I have to assume that I'm making less and be the one to go in and ask for more money? Why can't there be more people like Dan where they see it's wrong and fix it? I had to throw that out there.
Okay.
Can I respond
Well,
to that?
well, to answer that, Amy, the solution is that several states already have this on their books as law. California, Rhode Island, and Washington State, for example. New York City is rolling out one this year as well, where employees have to be transparent with the salaries. Okay, so the current employees would also see what the job is worth. Okay, and I guess at that point, that's where the negotiation would take place. However, incoming prospects, they get to know right up front what it is for a program manager, for example. Okay, this is the range. This is what this job is paying, and I think that's pretty good. Pretty good. That's a good start. But now I want to change the direction of this a little bit, and I want to ask each panelist um, to give me a pro or a con why transparency is a good idea or not a good idea. And we'll start with Karen.
Cool. Transparency is not it can be, and it can be harmful also, because with transparency you have people who look at what someone is making and make a determination as to whether or not they should get more money. And
Okay.
you have some, yes, and you
Yep.
have
Just
some, I'm
go
sorry,
ahead. I'm
and you
sorry.
have
Go ahead.
some people who look at that salary. And when you look at that person's salary and you look at the criteria for that job, you're trying to figure out why is that person getting that money when they don't have the experience and so forth and so on. It can be damaging both, because you can have a ten to $20,000 difference in salaries for the same position, same people.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try this a different way. I'll choose a panelist, and I'll say, let's say Charlie. So you smile. Give me a con for transparency in salary.
Well, I'll say a con on this would be that it's a personnel issue. You know, money's based in people. People don't have the same point of views, like I'm worth more than you, or you're not worth or less than me, or whatever. Everybody has their own opinion on it. There's probably going to be a lot of different opinions on that. So there's a part of me that says, well, because it's ultimately a personnel decision, and as you know, personnel decisions generally in a company are private, there's a reason for that because of issues involved, and there can be many different factors on it, right and wrong. And it's kind of like you almost open, and I'm not saying it's bad to do it, but it's almost like you open a Pandora's box on it, and all these other things come out because, oh, wait a minute, this thing is not right, or that thing's right, or and you get other people involved, and everybody's going to be, it's going to be all over the place. So it's not a perfect process. I do agree that people should be paid equally for what they do, and that the way to do that is have appropriate laws, in the states that they're in, to have that happen. That can be done, but personnel issues get a little more trickier than that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's going to be very complicated, and there could be a lot of different rights or wrongs on that.
But Dan, with the perfect process in place, the transparency, shouldn't it be a lot easier, both on the employer and the prospective employee, as well as the current employees?
Well, I think transparency is totally positive. It's about power. So when you have transparency, you return power to the workers. and it's not held just by the company. You can't do things like discriminate against a black person. You can't discriminate easily against women. You can't get away with that stuff because we know a lot of the DEI stuff is just, fluff. So uh, it's really important to do that. I saw this great post on LinkedIn. This guy owned a company, and he said, "I hired this guy, and he really was great, and I ended up paying him more than the people that were currently at my company who do the same thing." And so then what I did is I gave a raise to all those people to bring them up to what he was, because he taught me what the market is now. And I decided it was more important to keep my people who were keeping my business going and helping me make money than to go look for new people because they were dissatisfied and wouldn't look for work. So there's an example where total transparency on his part just removed all the nonsense.
Okay.
And
Okay.
now all these folks are saying, hey, I'm fairly paid. And he said
Hmm.
he was open to somebody walking into his office and talking about it. And it
And
goes
guess
back, if somebody's only in it a year and somebody else is in it 10 years, there may be a difference, but he could explain it by just laying it out on the table. And now what stories people will make up will be 100 times worse than the company could come up with themselves. And I
and I'll
think your
give
productivity will go up if you have total transparency.
there you go. That's what I was going to say. I will give you a definite pro to that. And that is when people feel that they're being paid equally um, the same for the job, or they have to have the salary increase to bring them up to a certain level that the job pays, they're going to feel better about their job. They're going to feel better about their workplace, and they're going to work harder for you. They'll be more indulgent, I feel, about their job. Um,
I'm sorry.
Amy, do you have a pro or a con?
I do. I have a con. And that it kind of tees off what both you and Dan were just saying. I believe it's referred to as the loyalty penalty, or it might be the loyalty gap, where if you have been with an organization for a certain amount of time, you are likely to be paid less than somebody that they bring in because the market has made changes, because it takes more to attract new talent. And the transparency will definitely expose that. And I could see that leading to current employee dissatisfaction and a lack of engagement. Now, I don't say we could be untransparent in order to fix that. I think that you should constantly review everybody's salary and do right sizing. That might sound like too much of a starry eyed pipe dream, but I believe that can be done. I think, practically speaking, this could lead to, at least in the short term, more dissatisfaction among tenured employees, folks who have stuck around and been loyal for a while, realizing that new folks just coming in are at a bigger level than they are. So that's my con.
Hmm. Yep. But the thing about those older or more tenured employees, as we said earlier, they may have been there for a while. Let's say someone that's been there for 25, 30 years. Okay, this is now an older person we're talking about, and they may take the abuse, take the lower pay that they have just to be able to keep a job. We know about the other side of it, and seniors have a harder time getting employed. So that's the other side of it. So salary secrecy, I personally believe it is an abusive system. Salary secrecy is an abusive system. And in my research for this topic, I came across a guy who said that many times he paid two people with the same qualifications and entirely different salaries simply because he negotiated better with one person than the other. That's such that's why there's a problem that I have with corporate America. I'll leave it like that. So we have 5 more minutes to this main section. Amy, I'm not Amy. Karen, did you want to say
Yes,
something?
I did.
Please.
In the state of Virginia, when you work for the county government, annually, yearly, they post every employee's salary,
Mm,
and there's absolutely nothing you can do about
Public,
it.
yeah.
And that has triggered a whole lot of anger, disappointment, and not wanting to be a good employee, like Amy said, because they saw other people salaries, and also like better negotiation with salary, newer people coming in making similar or more money. So that creates a lot. And that's their transparency. And it's not something you can't withdraw your name.
yeah,
It has,
and
yes.
and in California they actually had something like that, um, and it's prohibited by a section of the BCEA, uh, their transparency program, as it protects employees from being prejudiced by disclosures. So the employer cannot disclose the salary to other employees. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Charlie, did you have something to say?
No, I just threw it. Comment. That's what I was when Karen was talking about. That's what I was referring to earlier. So
Okay.
the issue, because it's to me, this is an issue because it deals with people. It's ultimately based in human nature. We all want to get ahead and all that on there, yes. And there are inequities in the system, yes. And will those equities be solved? I don't think so. Ultimately, there are good bosses that will do that, no question about that. There are also a lot of bad bosses out there, or bad companies, or whatever you want to call them. So I'm not as there's been improvements in that area, but you know what? There's some areas there's not been a lot of improvements. I'll just mention real quickly. One of the things I saw go back to men and women was that back in 1960, women made 60 cents on the dollar what a man made. By the 1990s, it was about 77 cents an hour. Now it's about 83 cents on the hour, on the dollar. And so it's really slowed down since the mid 90s, which is 30 years ago now, or almost 30 years ago. I'm not sure why that is. And obviously there's certain, it was kind of interesting. I looked and there was a couple of fields where there's actually total pay equity. One is social workers, which is probably not surprising. The other was electricians, believe it or not. I'm not sure how many women are electricians or not, but the equity has not, moving forward is still going, but it's going the last couple of decades for women, pay wise in general, very, very slowly. And I don't know why that is. But I didn't realize that. I was rather surprised to read that.
Well, Charlie,
Okay.
it's because us women aren't asking for money well enough. It's our fault.
Well, there we go.
I say that sarcastically. That was
Yeah, well,
yep.
So the last thing I'd like to talk about, I came across some steps, 5 of them, in fact, for better pay transparency. Some of this we may have talked about already. Number one is determine where your company currently falls on the pay transparency spectrum and where you want to be. Okay. They suggest having managers survey the employees about what the employees want to know about their salaries. That could open up a whole can of worms. But the second point was develop a pay philosophy that aligns with your talent strategy and culture. What do you value in new hires? What behavior do you want to incentivize? Okay. Clearly define roles and responsibilities and use market data to set salary ranges. I think that's very important too. This will also help the incoming employees know what they're worth in the market. How about this one? Conduct a payroll audit to identify and resolve salary discrepancies. I see Karen nodding her head on that one. Train managers to have proactive salary conversations with employees. Now that one's tricky. Train managers to have proactive conversations about their salaries with the employees. Oh no, I think you paying me enough money. I'm good. It's something you're not going to hear, right? Who doesn't think they're worth more? Charlie, do you think you're not worth more?
Well, I thought I was getting paid the most on this show. What are you talking about?
Yeah, nothing.
Of course I'm worth more. Everybody's worth
so,
more.
so
Everybody else is worth more, but not as much as me.
Of course, not as much as you, but I feel that that's a tricky thing to have a manager try to
exactly.
Have a proactive conversation with an employee about salary. So that's about all for this first segment. I want to thank all of the panelists for participating and lending their ideas to the topic of salary transparency. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we will have our round robin discussion, which will be led by one of the panelists. Stay tuned, only on Diverse Talking Heads podcast.
Woke up from a dream, you were sleeping like a babe. I was shining on your smile. I was happy without a doubt. I touched your lips with a tender care. Weary of the kisses we've shared. Now a new day will start again. With less of rush within hours, they'll be spent without you.
And we are back. This is Diverse Talking Heads podcast. And now we're going to move into the second segment of our podcast, which is what we call the round robin discussion. And today's episode will be led by panelist Karen. Karen, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I have a question. These last couple of days, we've had a congressperson who falsified everything about who he is as a person. He won his election bid, and he was placed on a couple of committees rendering decisions. At what point in time do we eject people like him? And why is he still allowed to participate in government decisions when nothing about him is the truth? Panel? Anyone want to comment? Go ahead, Dan. Thank you.
There's no bottom anymore. There's no bottom. And his vote was needed to get somebody to be Speaker of the House. He is actually the epitome of what that group is now. He just is one of the more extreme examples. And it's unfortunate. And those in power have chosen that it's more important to have his vote than to throw him out for things that would have gotten you disqualified in the past. So I always thought there was a bottom, and I'm not sure there is one anymore.
Well, Dan, I agree with you, but I would also say that we are entering a very dangerous place in this country where If I want to say I'm president, I won the election, you know, I'm a senator, I won the votes, whatever the case is, then I get to continue on with that job. And the backbone, the rules seem like they no longer apply, as per this congressman. And where do we go from here? Who's going to be next to say, I or lie about something, get a position, and then get to keep it? Where do we
Well,
go from here?
there have been people in his own party that want to get him out, but apparently there's not enough of them, which is a very sad statement, on that party itself. Not that I'm defending him here, but I think you're right that they're desperate to keep him in because they need all the votes they can. They did not do as well as they thought they were going to do in the midterm election, and it's come down to that. And the party in many ways has really lost its way here.
I read a. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
I throw it out real quick. I read a really interesting statement from somebody that said, look how easy it is for us to have found all these lies in a very short amount of time. But somebody funded this campaign. Somebody put this person's name forward. And I'm like,
Right.
Oh my gosh. Like they did kind of buy a vote with just any physical body they could throw in that role. Oh, sorry, I'll go ahead, Karen. I apologize.
No, Amy, you're absolutely, and I'm glad that you brought that point up because what they discovered in this short period of time is that when he did his GoFundMe fundraising campaigns, he used different names to get his monies. And does Congress have a vetting program? Like every time someone's elected, we have an election, be it governor, senator, president, whomever. The vetting process is necessary. Why do we have all of these stories after the fact? Once someone has been seated, this guy was sworn in when he should not have been sworn in. He stood outside with the rest of the people. So
I agree with you. Oh, go ahead.
But Karen, I didn't break any rules.
Not yet.
I didn't lie. I have many names. I'm a man of many faces.
Well, he, neither party vetted him well. But there was a small local newspaper that put this out there, and nobody else picked it up. He was investigated locally. It sort of shows why a lot of our local journalism going away hurts because they go after that stuff. But if it was New York State, so if New York Times would have picked it up before the election, perhaps that would have happened. Remember, he flipped a seat. And like you said, somebody put $750,000 into that campaign, and we don't know who it is because the rules allow it to be dark money. That is concerning.
Yeah.
And he also did stuff in, I believe it was Brazil. And there was some stuff that was going on with him down there because he was a foundation or something he had. I don't remember here. And they were going to investigate him. They stopped it. Now they're investigating him now. So it just goes on and on.
Yeah, his parents are originally from Brazil. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've only been to Brazil one time. That was just for vacation.
Well, we're glad to hear that, Calvin.
Well, it goes back to the deception that is endemic in the system right now. And the vetting is voting. That's the only vetting we have is voting. And he was legally voted in. So now they have to investigate him. There is a way for the House can vote a member out, but there is a procedure.
I wonder, I didn't even think to look, but I wonder how many people have actually been voted out because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a cannonball. She's just ready to explode. And she says such crazy things and she does crazy things, but she's set out one term. She made it through one term in Congress. So
Yeah, she's
we've
in her
got to do.
second. She's
I'm sorry.
actually very close. She's in the inner circle of the Speaker of the House.
Yes. Did you see how many votes she got from her when she ran for re-election? A lot.
Yeah, in that area. And I hear she wants to be a VP with DeSantis running.
Yeah, they posted that picture.
Okay, so but your congressman, I mean, obviously, I think it was, back when the country started, they said, it relies on an educated and aware voting public. And a lot of it's incumbent on us to decide not to accept this kind of behavior. And I think that's where our problem is. We have enough people who accept it and vote for it and will allow it and don't see it as a problem. And he also, he wasn't totally dumb at the beginning. He said immediately, I'm going to vote for the speaker. So the guy said, well, I'm within 3 votes, so I need him. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think what'll happen is he'll serve out his term and then they'll quietly move him aside and put somebody else in there.
Yep, I
But
agree.
the damage is done.
Unfortunately. Exactly.
Yes,
Yep.
the damage is done. It's just a sad state for us in America that we are comfortable with a lot of people who fabricate and exaggerate facts. So,
And the bad thing is that other countries are watching all of this.
yes.
It's almost like an unraveling that's going on. They keep peeling back layers, exposing different things. I personally think that the laws of this land, Constitution, has been looked at to find flaws. And there's a group of people that's playing upon these flaws and these loopholes. And we'll see where this all goes. But in the meantime, yes, I did go to college there. I did graduate, although it doesn't have my name on any roster. I was there. I was in Brazil, and my mother don't know anything.
You do get around.
Well, they say
Oh,
that his
gosh.
mom passed in 9/11.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Whatever.
he said.
Actually, he has about half a dozen times that he's used his mother's death. So it's kind of like, a kid who doesn't want to go to school and he talks about, his aunt dying about 18 times. So,
I believe he has a mother, but I'm not even sure about that. So,
okay.
That was my topic because I just couldn't believe every day we're getting more of his story in the newspapers. And has anybody seen anything in it like a more more truthful story in the New York Times? Because they and I asked that question because the Times usually does an article where they're going to tell the truth. Even the Wall Street Journal will tell the truth once in a while when it's controversial.
I don't know. It's kind of like the X-Files. The truth is out there somewhere.
Yes.
It's out there somewhere. So thank
Yes.
you, Karen, for that great round robin discussion.
Thank you all.
It probably could lead into another podcast topic in the future. And I want to take this time to thank our panelists today. Charlie, thank you. Dan, thank you. Karen, thank you. Amy, thank you. I am your man, Calvin Gibbs, and this has been Diverse Talking Heads podcast. And it's always important that we take 2 steps to the rear and get on out of here. Until the next episode, exit stage left.